Okay, so this is the story. This is the brief version. We're visiting Jeffrey's dad in the hospital, came out on the sidewalk, stepped onto the pavement, my foot rolled, it snapped a bone. We heard it snap. Left fifth metatarsal proximal end, for those who are interested. Anyway, but I have this fabulous cast. So it doesn't hurt, but it is a pain in the back pocket getting around on crutches or something like that. So I have this wonderful seat. You were wondering what it was like. We're just going to pretend we're in a bar today. One thing, name tags. Judith mentioned that. When I was serving full-time at Calvary Fletcher, we worked hard on that, and I said stuff about that. But there were always some people, I don't like name tags. Well, who the heck do you think you are? You're just so special. Oh, Lord, I thank you. I'm not like all these other schmucks who wear name tags. Lord, is it I? Is it I? Wear your bloody name tag. But I know everyone's name. Well, maybe you don't want them to know you. I'm an extrovert. I'm great. I can do it. If you're not an extrovert, what was her name? It begins with a. When you do that, it helps people know who you are. It shows that you want to be known. Wear your name tag. Of course, it's funny, I talked about, let's pretend we're in a bar. I used to do that a lot. I used to support a great state institution known as the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board. I don't do that anymore. There's a story there. I'm not going to tell you all of it. But in going to what they call 12-step meetings, going to this group of people who would come in and tell their stories. Judith was talking about telling stories. And I got such spiritual nurture there. Because here were folk who were broken, who came and shared their brokenness. And I thought about church. Folk just go to church to strut their stuff. When we really share our stories, we share our brokenness, and that is where God shows up. When you are strutting your stuff, honey, oh God, I thank you. I am not like one of those. Why do you need God? You got it. You got it all together. And then you step off a curb at a hospital, your foot goes like that, and you know. Oh yeah, gravity, it's not just a good idea, it even applies to me. Lord, is it I? When we share our stories, our hearts, our brokenness, that's where the grace of God shows up. I'm not saying it's not other places. I have no control on what God will do. Lord, would I be better? I'd have more money than Oprah if I had a line on that one. No, it shows up anyway. Pharisees weren't all bad. Some of them were stinkers. Just like, you go to a good AA meeting, there's somebody there whose their story about their drinking, it is so much worse than everyone else's. My drunkalog's worse than yours, and I'm going to tell you about it. Oh, they come in and strut their stuff. There are a few. Just like anywhere else. Just like church. Pharisees weren't all bad, though. Maybe the guy was just being grateful that he's not like one of those. I am so grateful that my children are not in a cage somewhere in Texas. I am so grateful. I am not looking for the body of a loved one somewhere in northern Syria where they bombed a hospital. I am so grateful I'm not a lot of places. But I've seen enough in my life to know that it wouldn't have taken much for me to be there. It wouldn't have taken much for me to be under a bridge somewhere. And how many times do I look at folk who have different political or religious leanings from mine? I'm not sure some of them worship the same God, if you want to know the truth. Oh God, I thank you. I am not like those fill in the blank people. You know, and honestly, it doesn't really matter which side of that spectrum you're on. Everybody's throwing rocks at everybody. Lord, is it I? Tax collectors, on the other hand, they were scum of the earth. Nothing redeeming about them. They were Jews they were private contractors with the Roman government, the occupying army, to take taxes from their fellow Jews, and they took their cut. They were hated. This is not about anyone employed with the Internal Revenue Service. This is about a whole different thing. Tax collectors were hated. They were unredeemable. People who first heard this parable would have thought the Pharisees were like, well, you know, they're the good religious people who show up on Sundays and fill the pews and drive their nice cars and even the not so nice cars, but they come to meetings and they can get babysitters and they can get what they want because they're pretty well off. I mean, you have to be well off, don't you, to be part of church? Generally. So they were the good guys. They weren't that bad. And it's easy to see this parable as black and white. Ooh, Pharisees, bad. Ooh, tax collectors, good. Well, not many of us are going to say that, are we? But, you know, it's easy to see as black and white. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? Except it's not that easy. For the people who first heard it, they would have walked away going, oh, shucks. How can a tax collector be justified before God? How can a tax collector know God's grace? How can that be possible? If the Pharisees, the ones who are religious, the ones who follow the laws, all the good guys, I mean, you know, they're the ones who go to all the Sunday school classes or Hebrew school classes or whatever. But I mean, you know, they're the good guys. If they don't make it, what hope is there for me? And maybe that's the point. That's the point of this parable. What hope is there for me? Lord, is it I? There's a very interesting thing in Greek, being an interesting language, is there's a couple of ways you can translate one of these passages. You see there toward the end where it said, now one of these, you know, this one went home justified rather than the other. Well, the Greek word there is actually para, P-A-R-A, like parachute, parallelogram, parallel, Paralympics, what's one of the, you know, think of a para word. It means somebody, you know, walks beside. It can mean a sort of also. But, you know, perhaps it has to be translated idiomatically because this is this and that is that. So it's possible in this context, and the way we like it, because we want good guys and bad guys, is to say this one went home justified rather than the other. When in fact it could be translated, this one went home justified along with the other. In one sense, maybe it doesn't matter. The point is about our contempt for others. Our thinking we're all that. Our thinking, I don't need a name tag, or I don't need to tell my story. Our thinking we are all that. But more importantly, if a publican, that was the old King James word, the old English word for a tax collector was publican. You may have heard, publicans and sinners. It's in that brokenness God shows up. And somehow along the way, for a long time, the church has thought how we need to be all that. We need to look good. Of course, now conversely, I'm not asking you to look bad. I mean, some of you are a little uglier than me, but I can't help that, I mean, it's not that. It's not like go out and be ugly so God will love you more. Paul addresses that, I believe, in the epistle to the Romans. The point is, none of us are beyond that grace. The point of it is, and the point in which this parable turns things upside down, is that maybe God isn't taking notes about what you are doing. Maybe God is not trying to do anything except to love you. I came to something, and this has a lot to do with my being part of AA, I'll tell you. That over the years, so many people have talked about what is God's will for my life. When I go out this door, should I go left or should I go right? Well, honey, do you think there is this book with every second counted, okay, like this is like an episode of Doctor Who, where they had these robots with little people inside telling, like, okay, we're going to go this way now. I mean, no, I don't believe that. Maybe it's true. Maybe God is wasting a whole lot of paper on me. What is God's purpose for my life? Will I read the right passage? Will I tithe enough? Will I fast enough? What? Well, I'm going to give you the definitive answer right now. This is what I've learned. I may be crazy, which is probably true, but God's purpose for our lives is to know we are loved and to love in return. To know that we are loved and to love in return. Nice. It's as simple as that and as difficult as that. It's all those therapy bills. Oh, I am so thankful for the Episcopal Church Medical Trust. Jesus. It's all of that stuff we've had to do. And it sometimes only happens in nanoseconds for us to know that we are loved, that we are held, publican or Pharisee, Democrat or, oh my God, Republican, poor or rich. Ugh. But I have to remember, if God loves me, God loves all you other people. All of them. And I don't get to stand and say, I am better than whomever. Of course, a lot of times I think I am. A lot of times I think I am right and righteous. And I thank God I am not like those people. God is it I. Yeah, boy, it's you. To know that we are loved and to love in return, as difficult as that is, to tell our stories and listen to the stories of others. To wear our name tags because we want to be known. One last thing, I know I'm running on here. Many of y'all have probably used computers and a word processing thing. You've probably heard this one before, but it's pretty good. You know, when you're using well, I like WordPerfect. Nobody uses WordPerfect anymore, but Word or Pages or whatever. There's usually a little thing up there that shows you a little picture of the page and has little lines on it. And on some of them, all the lines match on this side and they're kind of in and out on this side. And that's called being left justified. You know, that's the justification thing. You didn't know there was Jesus stuff in your word processor, did you? And there's another button which has all the little lines the same length. And that's fully justified. So this publican, this tax collector, goes home with all his little lines even. And the way it does that, well, I don't know exactly how it does it. My partner's a computer programmer. Maybe he could tell you. But I know in old typeset thing, they put in little spaces. What it does, it puts all the words and the letters in the right relationship with one another. So it looks like it's all nice and even. To be justified means to be put in right relationship. Sometimes my lines do not go all the way to the end. Lord, is it I? To know that I am loved, to love in return, to open my heart to others, with no room for contempt then. To love and to know that in all things we are held.